In the news tonight, His Majesty says this month's Arab Summit in Jordan is a key opportunity to unify Arab ranks and forge common positions to address regional crises. The Iraqi army takes full control of the last major route west of Mosul, and the leader of Daesh is believed to have left his group behind to fight the Battle of Mosul. And over 30 people are killed as gunmen dressed as medics attack an Afghan military hospital. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King welcomed Qatar's Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani and discussed ways to further cement relations between Jordan and the Gulf Arab state. During the meeting at Al Husseiniya Palace, King Abdullah stressed the coordination of Arab positions toward regional issues and the need to solidify and institutionalize joint Arab action. They address an Arab summit Jordan will host later this month. The King said holding the summit amid the current regional turmoil is an opportunity to unify Arab ranks and come up with common visions to address crises. The Qatari minister conveyed to the King Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's greetings and his keen interest to further enhance relations in various fields. Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi and his Qatari counterpart also agreed on the importance of enhancing Jordanian-Qatari ties and increasing cooperation in all fields. The ministers discussed the Palestinian cause, Syria, the war on terrorism and other regional issues, and agreed to pursue coordination to help solve regional crises and achieve regional security and stability. Safadi and Sheikh Mohammed Al Thani also underlined the need to forge joint Arab cooperation to counter the common challenges. The ministers discussed preparations for the annual Arab Summit Jordan will host later this month, emphasizing its importance as it will look into the best ways to collectively address regional crises and achieve Arab interests. The State Security Court handed down prison terms of up to 8 years with hard labor against 6 people convicted of supporting the Daesh terror group. One of them was sentenced to a 5-year jail term after he confessed to comments he posted on Facebook calling for armed protests against the war in Syria. He was convicted of incitement to terrorism. One of them was sentenced to 5-year jail term after he confessed to comments on Facebook as well. Another was arrested as he exited Jordan on his way to join Daesh, received a 7-year prison term, and a third was sentenced to 8 years for promoting the terror group's ideology and trying to join its ranks. 2 other convicts were also given 8-year prison terms after their conviction of acts of terrorism on the group on the internet, and a 20-year-old was sentenced to 6 years in jail for promoting the terrorist ideology. Iraqi forces saw off an overnight Daesh counter-attack near Mosul's main government buildings. They took full control of the last major road leading west to the militant-held town of Tel Afar. The military said troops also captured the Badush prison northwest of Mosul near the road. US and Iraqi officials believe Daesh's leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has left operational commanders behind to fight the Battle of Mosul, focusing mainly on his own survival. More in this report.
Islamic State's enigmatic leader is thought to have gone to ground to focus on his own survival as his self-declared caliphate crumbles around him. U.S. and Iraqi intelligence sources telling Reuters that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi appears to have abandoned his followers in Mosul, leaving them to fight a losing battle. This Islamic State photo purporting to show him delivering a sermon in the city last November, just weeks after its siege began. Expressing confidence in victory, it would be the last known image of him. Since then, there's been a sharp decline in the militants' communications, including propaganda, and the postings that do go up make little mention of Mosul. The intelligence sources say the drop in chatter from Islamic State's leadership and the massive gains by coalition forces in the 4-month siege suggest he's fled the city. An elusive target, They believe he now changes locations constantly, multiple times in one day, likely hiding among civilians in isolated villages rather than with his hardcore fighters. The last official report on his whereabouts came from an Iraqi airstrike on a house near the Syrian border weeks ago. This video said to show his supporters who've remained behind. With Mosul's fall imminent and a battle raging for Islamic State's stronghold in Syria, Raqqa, the group is now expected to move underground, similar to the al-Qaeda insurgency that hit Iraq after the U.S. invasion in 2003. Baghdadi is a former al-Qaeda leader, and those intelligence sources say he's learned from his predecessors' mistakes.
Warplanes bombed a rebel-held area east of Damascus where Russia declared a ceasefire less than 24 hours earlier. Russia's defense ministry said earlier a ceasefire had been agreed in East Ghouta in Syria's Damascus province until March 20. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group said airstrikes and artillery had hit 3 towns there. In the north, Syrian Democratic Forces fighters reached the banks of the Euphrates River, cutting the road connecting the Daesh strongholds of Raqqa and Deir ez-Zor. A Democratic Forces spokesman said the fighters will tighten the chokehold on Daesh's base in Raqqa after cutting the last road out of the city. The spokesman added that the forces now plan to capture surrounding rural areas and advance toward the city to isolate it completely. The rebel alliance, including the Kurdish YPG militia and Arab groups, launched a campaign in November last year to encircle and ultimately capture Raqqa from Daesh. A law to muffle mosques calls to prayer in Israel and occupied East Jerusalem won preliminary approval in a charged parliamentary session. Arab legislations in the Israeli Knesset have denounced the measure as racist. Opponents say the legislation, sponsored by right-wing parties, impinges on the religious freedom of Israel's Muslim minority that makes up almost 20% of the population and has long complained of discrimination. An opposition lawmaker from the left-wing Meretz party said the coalition has gone crazy.
It is a small, pathetic, racist, shallow coalition which gives in to a few worthless radicals, and you are all lining up, competing who will declare more loyalty to the hatred of Arabs. This coalition has gone crazy. You are out of your minds. It's one of the most shameful days that I remember in Israel's Knesset.
British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson said the UK would refrain from interfering in Palestine-Israeli negotiations after meeting Palestinian leaders in the West Bank city of Ramallah. Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki said he and Johnson held a candid meeting where they discussed how to move forward with the peace process. He said Johnson reassured that the UK has no intention of imposing itself. After his meeting with al-Malki, Johnson met Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Later on, Johnson traveled back to West Jerusalem, where he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during his one-day trip. The UN Children's Fund, UNICEF's representative in Yemen, called for children to be spared from conflict in the contested Red Sea coastal city of Al-Makha. The Yemeni army, backed by Gulf Arab forces, fought their way into Al-Makha in January, pushing out Iran-allied Houthi militia. The UNICEF resident representative said she hoped that people living in surrounding areas would not be dragged into the ongoing conflict.
Very timely because, as you know, the number of malnourished children is very big. 2.2 million children are malnourished and the bodies are weakened. So this increases the risk of diseases. Therefore, vaccination is very important.
Lebanon appointed General Joseph Aoun as army commander. He replaced General John Khawaji as the head of a force that has been guarantor of civil peace since the civil war. Lebanese Information Minister Milhem Riachi made the announcement in a televised speech after a cabinet meeting. He said the government also filled several other high-ranking security and judicial posts. General Imad Uthman was appointed head of the Internal Security Forces, replacing Major General Ibrahim Basbouz. Major General Abbas Ibrahim retained his post as head of General Security. Gunmen dressed as medics, stormed a hospital in the Afghan capital Kabul and battled security forces for hours. The attack killed more than 30 people and wounded dozens in an attack claimed by Daesh. One suicide bomber blew himself up at the rear of this Sardar Mohammed Dawood Khan Hospital across the road from the heavily fortified US Embassy. 3 attackers with automatic weapons and hand grenades had also entered the complex. Security forces ended the attack by mid-afternoon, killing all 3 gunmen. The United Nations Security Council has condemned North Korea's launch of 4 ballistic missiles. The launch was in response to the joint US-South Korea military exercises, which it regards as preparation for war. More in this report.
The United Nations Security Council damning North Korea's latest round of missiles on Tuesday, criticizing what it calls Pyongyang's destabilizing behavior. An emergency meeting of the Council has been set up for Wednesday after the North fired 4 ballistic rockets this week, 3 of them landing in the sea off the coast of Japan, a clear violation of a UN ban on the country's weapons program. The UN says Pyongyang is increasing tension in the region and beyond and fueling the risk of a regional arms race. Those harsh words handed down as the US begins rolling out the controversial THAAD missile defense system, sparking heavy tension with China. Pyongyang has been under sanctions and an arms embargo since 2006. The Security Council's cracked down after each of its 5 nuclear tests and says it regrets that Kim Jong-un is spending resources on ballistic missiles rather than the unmet needs of North Korea's people. UN chiefs have called on member states to double down on sanctions to cut off Pyongyang's pursuit of deadly weapons.
Mark International Women's Day, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said empowering women and ensuring they have full access to leadership roles in government and business will help secure peace, human rights and development. Guterres, who is in Kenya as part of a tour of the drought-stricken regions in Africa, said women who suffer from poverty and conflict in many countries around the world must have their rights protected.
I have lived in my past capacity as High Commissioner for Refugees the suffering of women in the most tragic circumstances that one can imagine. And I've seen women of the great victims of poverty, of conflict, and violations of human rights in different parts of the world. The protection of women in these circumstances is absolutely essential. But I believe that the only way to make that protection effective is to give full priority to the empowerment of women, to give full priority to the massive presence of women in government institutions, in political systems, in the business community, in the boards of companies, and in peace negotiations, in all aspects in which societies are today developing. I do believe that with a full presence of women in our societies, development will be stronger, peace will be more easy to maintain, human rights will also be better protected.
And as the world celebrates International Women's Day, it is inspiring to read about women who lead by example. Nana Mal, a 98-year-old grandma in India, is an inspiration for youngsters to lead an active, healthy lifestyle by practicing yoga. She has been practicing the ancient discipline since the age of 5, boasts of almost 100 students from all age groups who come to her home to learn yoga. A mother of 2 sons and 3 daughters, Nana Mal is fit and healthy even at this age and wakes up every day at 5 a.m. to practice yoga. Well, she is an inspiration to us all. Serena Williams had withdrawn from the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells and in the Miami Open due to a left knee injury. As a result, she will relinquish the world #1 tennis ranking to German Angelique Kerber. Williams, a 2-time champion at the showpiece event at the California Desert Resort, had returned to the women's top ranking in January after claiming a record 23rd Grand Slam singles title in the professional era at the Australian Open. The women's main draw at the BNP Paribas Open begins today. The Miami Open, which Williams has won 8 times, runs from March 20 to April 2nd. Dirk Nowitzki becomes the first foreign-born player to score 30,000 points in the NBA, and just the 6th player ever reached the milestone. Nowitzki joined all 3 leading scorers, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain as the only players to reach the marker. He waved to the crowd during a video tribute on the scoreboard of his 19 sessions. Nowitzki finished the half with 25 points as the Mavericks took a 70-52 lead. And finally, cold and clear in the hilly areas, Badia and Eastern Plains, with an overnight low of 9 degrees in Amman. Temperatures will tomorrow soar to be 5 to 6 degrees above average at this time of year. So it's going to be a sunny and warm day in general across many regions, with a high of 29 degrees in the Dead Sea. Winds will be southeasterly moderate to brisk, blowing dust in the Badia and Eastern Plains. Further south, the Gulf of Aqaba should also enjoy a warm day tomorrow with southerly winds and calm seas. Let's have a look at the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to enter our top stories once again, His Majesty says this month's Arab Summit in Jordan is a key opportunity to unify Arab ranks and forge common positions to address regional crises. The Iraqi army takes full control of the last major route west of Mosul, and the leader of Daesh is believed to have left his group behind to fight the Battle of Mosul. And over 30 people are killed as gunmen dressed as medics attack an Afghan military hospital. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lawal Balqar. Thank you for watching and enjoy the spring tomorrow.